Hi everybody, and welcome to video number 5, looking at the Diamond, the DA40 next generation, which has got the G1000, Garmin G1000 unit. And this one is not about the Stream Deck for a change. We're actually going to use the X-Touch Mini, which is a MIDI controller. This is my one here. This is the actual, I've got a webcam on this. It's really designed to work with music. But it just sending MIDI commands, so we can reprogram that using X's and O's to send. Well, it still sends MIDI commands, but we can act on those MIDI commands in X's and O's. This is just a paper template that I've printed and cut out, and stick on so I know what all the functions do. I'll probably put a link to that in the description if you want to download that. It's in Word format and it's designed, I'm afraid, for an A3 printer. You can't get it all onto a sheet of A4, so it's an A3 printer, and I just cut the cutouts out using a sharp knife, and I've got a rotary cutter that cuts out the circles. I'll leave that for you to sort out. If you want to pinch that off of my GitHub, you're very welcome to do that. Okay, so let's have a look at this controller. If you're not familiar with it, it's got 8 rotary controls up here, and it's important if you're going to buy a different MIDI controller other than this one, that they are infinite. They don't have a stop. They go in completely, just keep going in each direction. So they're not potentiometers. They are they've got a click to them, and they just rotate around. Okay, so they're not potentiometers, they are rotary controllers. Anyway, it's the layout design I'm interested in. So I've got 8 rotary controllers here. Each also has a press button on the top, so if you press them they do things. And I've got 16 soft buttons here that I can press, and they've also got an LED light behind them that you can program as well. So there's a lot you can do with this, and in fact there are 2 layers. You can apply 2 functions to everything, so I can be in layer A or in layer B, and they do different things. So it's like having 16 rotary controllers, each with its own 16 buttons, and 32 more down here. So a lot you can do with this. What I'm really interested in though is the layout design. I'm not really going to go into massive depth about what to program, how you program it. I'll do a couple, but really I've done that in so many other videos that if you follow my other videos you'll be able to pick that up. But it's about understanding the layout design, my thinking about what goes where. So this is my starting point. I've got my 8 rotary controllers up here, and I'm going to talk about layer A. So layer A I will label above the switch or the rotary controller, and I will label it in black. So on the left hand side I deal with the nav radio, because that's on the left hand side of the PFD, the primary flight display. So I will deal with that. That's the rotary actions. It does the megahertz and kilohertz, and the push switches swap between radio 1 and radio 2. Let's get right, there's my pointer. Swap between radio 1 and radio 2, or between active and standby. And I'll show you what I mean by that if you're not that familiar with how these work. Let's get to here. So this top one here is going to control the nav radio megahertz, and that's the equivalent of pressing just turning this outer knob. There are 2 rotary controllers here, one stacked on top of the other, large and small, or outer and inner, depending how you want to work it. So if I turn the outer knob, you can see that it's changing the megahertz, and if I use this one here, it's going to control my kilohertz. And if I want, that's standby. If I want to make it active, I will just press on this button here, and that brings that over and makes it active. If I wanted to work on my nav radio 2, I press on this button here, and now that's active, so I can tune to something different on there and switch that over to the active. Let's take it back up to nav 1, so we know where we are. Okay, normally you only work with 1 radio. Yeah, occasionally I work with 2. Comms, less so. Comms I tend to work with just 1 radio, but we set pretty much exactly the same up. We set up the comms, megahertz, kilohertz, active and standby, and swap 1 and 2. and that's pretty much exactly the same because it's this knob here, so it's on the right hand side just as it would be on the actual device, and again we're simulating the outer, inner and the press on the end. So there's the outer, there's the inner, and we can do, this is the standby to active, so we can switch that across, standby to active. And this is the one, it says here the push 1 to 2, so we can push that and change to the COM2 and back to the COM1. So that perfectly emulates that. So the commands for that, let's have a look at axes and O's and bring that in. Axes and O's. So if I turn this one here, you'll see this is lighting up, and it's lighting up the what they call the AS1000. We would know it as a G1000, they've called the AS1000 primary flight display. It's for the nav, and it's the large controller, and you've got an increment and a decrease, a decrement version of that. If I was going to program that in as a fresh command, I would say it's a new assignment. You program it as if it's a key down event, and I would filter here. So let's do that 1000, and it's the primary flight display. Apply that filter, and in the HTML variables we're looking for nav, large, and it doesn't matter which order you do them in, but if I do the decreased one first of all, so double click on that, that brings it into here, and as soon as I turn this knob it will detect what device and which button we're talking about, but it won't know which way I've turned it. It just knows I've done a click. I have to click it again a second time and it knows whether you meant left or right. So that will catch you out if you're not careful. If you were doing the increment version, you want to turn it to the right. So we go to the right and it will recognize that. I'm going to cancel out of that. But that's all you need to do to program excuse me, to program what you're looking for. So it's all about that filter being set up, applying that filter, and it's all in the A1000 primary flight display, and you'll see that we've got the nav large button being incremented and decremented, the small button same thing, and we've got the nav push, which is as if you push the end button here, and that's the one that makes it swap between 1 and 2, and this is the nav switch, which I allocate 1 and 2 here, and that's the one here that I allocate to switching between active and standby. So they're the bits that we can program on there. Okay, so experiment with that, and it's the same for the comms up here: the large, the small, increment, decrement, the push, the small, and the switch. Okay, so that's what I'm programming. I haven't programmed this long one in here. It's supposed to switch over to the emergency frequency, but that varies from country to country as far as I know, so I've not programmed that in. Anyway, let's just close that down and cancel that. So that's what I've programmed on let's get those two there. So the next one across is my heading, and that does two things. Firstly, it will move the heading bug, and this one here has the other function. Let's get back into here. If I move my heading bug around, you can see that I can dial in a heading, but if I press on the end of it, it will automatically do what it says here, push to sync your heading, so it will head where you're facing, so you can capture that straight away. So carry on in the direction I'm going. I'm not sure that actually exists on the real world G1000, but it's there, so we will program it. And again, we need to look at axes and O's for that. So turning the heading knob, it's got the heading bug, decrement and increment programmed in the same way, and the one on the end is actually using a little bit of a script. So I'll show you what the script looks like. The basic ACT heading to autopilot is what they've called the script. You can call it whatever you like, but if I look at the language for it, it's a pretty simple script. It reads the gyro heading, so that is reading the gyro heading in degrees and sending it to the heading bug set, and So you can get the event from here and put it in. Okay, so that's you get the variable from here, the plane, heading, degrees, gyro, and you just send that value to that on that key press. So to allocate that, let's get rid of that. You allocate it again as if it's a key event. Now it'll be in the basic script, and it is that one there. So we double click on that, and then we just press the button, and it allocates it to it. So we just press the button. It doesn't matter. It's not about turning left or turning right. It's just pressing it. So it says it's going to be a click event, and on my setup, it's button number 3022, and we just click add, and that'll be done. But we need to get out of that. Okay, so that's the heading bug. My next one across is my altitude, the target altitude, and you need two buttons for that. You need two rotary controllers for that, one for the thousands and one for the hundreds. And on the here, that will be this one here. There's the outer and there's the inner, so we'll just be allocating those to it. And you can see it in action here. If I turn this knob here, that's actually going up and down by 1,000, and this is going up and down by 100. So it's just those two there. And the allocations for that on X's and O's are there. So that is the AP Alt Var Deck and Ink, and the hundreds and the thousands version. So you'll find those again. Just do a search for app Alt Var and you'll find those. Okay, let's push that out of the way, and let's go back. So that's those two done, and the last one here is the course that we're going to set for the VOR1. So that is, we're in VOR1 mode here. So this button here sets the radial that we want to fly along for VOR1, and the allocation for that, put my axis nose in again, is the A1000 PDF course, ink and deck. Okay, so they're the ones we're going to look for that, and assign those. That's pretty easy. Okay, what's next? So that's really all of layer A rotaries done. So let's have a look at the layer B rotaries. So this time we're going to look at the flight management system, and we're going to look at the PFD side of things here for the outer and inner of the flight of the FMS. So that is here, the FMS. There's an outer, an inner, and a push. It works best if I demonstrate it by putting in a flight plan. So click on the flight plan there. If I change to layer B here, I'm now working on the inner and the outer. Let's get a bit of light on that. That's what I like to work. Yeah, here we go. It's getting a bit dark outside now. We need some lights. That's better. Okay, so I've got the outer and inner and this press here for the cursor. So if I wanted to put something into my active flight plan here, I don't usually use this side, to be honest. I do my flight planning on the MFD, but you can do it here. So this is how it works. I press on here and that will bring up a cursor, and I can now use the right hand one to change the input. So if I wanted to put in where my departure, that'll be Echo Golf Kilo Alpha. So turn that to Echo. Where are we going? Echo, and then to move along one, I use the outer button, Golf Kilo Alpha is where we are at the moment. And we're at Shoreham, and I will press enter here to enter into my flight plan. Let's clear out of that for the moment, and let's flight plan out. Okay, so it's the outer and inner button here, and the cursor that we're pressing. So again, let's have a look at the allocation for that. So the outer one is the 1000 PDF, the FMS, and it's the lower button and the upper button. Okay, so the lower button is the outside one and the upper button is the inside, and there's the push command there to allocate. So that's the FMS system for here programmed, and let's get out of that again. Off you go. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's allocated there. And if I bring back my PowerPoint, on this side here I've done the same for the main flight display and the cursor for the press of that, and the outer and inner, and that's what I use most often. So again, if I bring back and let's switch the view, it's allocating these ones here, the outer and inner function, and so this one here on layer B, and that would walk me through here the waypoint information and the nearest and those sections there. If I wanted to go into here, if I wanted to look up a waypoint, bring up the cursor, and again turn knobs and things like that. So that's how the outer and inner work on there. Let's get out of that. So if I press the clear button, long press on the clear button, that should take us out. Perhaps not when the cursor is working. Let's turn the cursor off. Nope, not going to work. Okay, let's get out of this. Let's clear that now. Okay, so the clear button works now. We're out. Okay, so that's the allocation here for the MFD. So I would use a different filter for that one. So the MFD, I would filter for the 1000 underscore MFD, and you've got your FMS upper, lower, increment, decrement, and push there to program in. Okay, back here. What's next? Well, under here I've got two barometers to set, so it's pretty much the same command, but I've got two different barometers to set, and to show you where they are. The first one is the electronic one here. So if I turn my baro 1, that does that one, and the second one is up here, which is my standby instrument. So you kind of they're set independently. The idea is this is mechanical, so if you have an electrical failure here, I've still got control over my ultimate this gauge here. Sorry, words are failing me at the moment. Okay, so we have two barometers. So the allocations behind that, let's have a look at this one, baro 1. We are going to do the A1000 PDF baro increment and decrement. And this one here is like the steam gauge, it's the Colesman increment and decrement. So that's what we're having a filter for, the Colesman, for historic reasons. So that controls the mechanical device. And the next one across, I've got set for my range on my MFD. So if we look at the MFD here, let's get out of here. Let's clear. I want to clear that. In fact, let me put in my current position. So let's do the same as we did before. We're going to look at Echo Golf Kilo Alpha Echo Golf Kilo Alpha. And we'll look at Shoreham. Let's enter that, and there we're out. So my range button does exactly what you'd expect it to do. Zooms out, zooms in, so that we have got a range controller there. Okay, so what's the command on that? Let's look at the range, and it's there we are, A1000 MFD range increment decrement, so very easy to allocate. Okay, and the last one in this sequence here, we've got the equivalent of the VOR1. We've got a VOR2 course that we can set. So we can only see that when this is on VOR2. So if we press the CDI button here, that cycles us through, and we want to be on VOR2. So this one here, we're in B. Let's set that for east. And if I switch that now to VOR1, that's independently done on bank A. So we try to keep those on the same button, so that that's just obviously the course, and we can set independent ones on there. Okay, where are we up to? Not doing too badly here. So that's all of the rotaries done. The only push buttons we've got set are the swaps here and the heading set, and in the bottom one here, just to bring up the cursor. So we have got other buttons. If you run out, you could actually allocate them to them, but there's not a lot of logic on that one. So let's have a look at these buttons here. So I need to allocate all of the autopilot functions, and those are the functions that you'll find here: autopilot, flight director, heading hold, altitude hold, nav hold. VNav isn't actually programmed into this unit. I'm not sure if it is in the next iteration, the NXI that's coming out. So something I'll have to play with later. But we're just allocating those to those buttons. So AP, heading, nav, APR, and under there, flight director, altitude hold, VNav I've programmed in, but it doesn't do anything, and the back course. So the allocations for those in X's and O's, let's have a look at those. So if I press the autopilot button on here, this is layer A we're talking about now, is the AP master. Now that has got a bit of a bug in it, that when you press it, it turns it on. When you press it, it doesn't show that it turns off, but you hear the chime to warn you it's turned off. And clearly it is off. So I press the AP and it's on. I can turn the flight director on and off. He says, and I can hear the chime. I'm not recording the desktop noise, but it's clearly turned it off. So that's working. There's my heading. So that is allocated on, if I press the heading hold, it's AP panel heading hold. The nav one is AP nav 1 hold. That's working fine. Approach mode, AP approach hold. That's easy to do. Flight director should go on and off. Toggle flight director should work. I'm not happy at the moment, it's not doing it, but it should do. It does usually. Not sure why you turn the flight director off all the time, but there you are. This is the altitude hold, AP alt hold. You can see the flight director has moved there. That's okay. Turn that off, and you can see here that it came up as altitude hold, and down we go again. So VNav does nothing. Back course, click on there, and if we're in heading mode, that will now say that it's looking for the back course to come in. And we can turn that on and off. Okay, so that's it working. Make sure that we're active here. You can see the light's gone off here for autopilot. I'll turn it back on again, and the light's up because I'm running a script behind here. There's a whole video I've done on this script, but it's got a script allocated to this aircraft, the aircraft automated script, and I've got this particular script here for the DA40. Probably best if I leave that for another video and talk you through that one so you can see how that script works. So I won't do that for the moment, but it has got a script running to light up the autopilot functions on here, well, as best we can anyway. Okay, so that's what's allocated. there, the autopilot settings. And the next thing we need to talk about is the altitude, the various different ways of achieving your required altitude. Flight level change is the one I prefer to use, particularly when I'm ascending. And what we do there is, if we allocate a target altitude here and we tell it that we want to go using the flight level change button, what it will do, it will maintain the airspeed that we plug in here. So I've got my flight level change up and down, and it will work out for itself. It will try to maintain that ASI, and over here it will adjust your trim to get the best possible climb that it can, maintaining that speed. The best level climb for this aircraft is about 70 knots. So what I have actually done sneakily is I have allocated an extra button here, which doesn't exist in real life, but it will issue the command to fly at the best rate of climb. So if I press that button here, let's go back into there, you'll see that it sets it to 70, so I don't have to go up on that one. What it's supposed to do, I can't remember if it does or not. If you're in flight and press the FLC button, it should capture your current airspeed, and then you can adjust it to match what you want. So you wouldn't normally start from 0 when you press FLC. It's only 0 because we're on the ground, but if you're in flight, it will capture what you're doing at the moment in flight, so it should be fairly close to your best rate of climb. But I've programmed that in here for my FLC, and I can adjust that still. I've still got control of that with these buttons here. And the other method which I prefer to use for descents is the vertical speed, telling it I want to go down according to my vertical speed, and I control the ASI with the power, with the throttle. So let's switch over to vertical speed, and again I can say I want to go up, and it's saying here I'm going up at it's going to target 400 feet per minute, or I can go down, say down at 900 feet per minute, and it's up to me to use the throttle to control the airspeed indicator. So this one here, it will just use the trim to try and keep it at the rate of descent that you've put in. You've got to manually control the speed. The other way around with the flight level indicator, it will keep the speed and you control the rate of climb with your power, and it will maintain that. Okay, so they work in opposite directions really, those two. And let's have a look at X's and O's for these. So let's go back to flight level control. My flight level control again is a script, basic FLC toggle. So let's go and look at the script for that. Basic FLC toggle, and it just says flight level change. So I think you probably just put that in as an event, to be honest. I can't remember why I went that way, but it works and I've left it alone. But you could probably just program that straight into the button. Let's have a look at the actual button here. So basic FLC toggle, and there it is. It's just in as a key event. That's okay. The one that's for the best FLC, or best rate of climb, I've set here the AAP speed variable, and I've set it to 70. And so you put in the event here, autopilot speed variable set, and you roll this to the speed that you want to allocate. So when you click save, it will set your vertical speed, airspeed, to 70 knots, and if you wanted to do 75, you just roll that to 75 and then save, and that's what will happen when you press that button there. FLC up and FLC down are the same variable, the AP speed variable, decrease and increase. So that's programmed in there with a 1, it goes up by 1, and the decrease 1, so the increase by 1, decrease by 1. So you could change those figures if you wanted to. Vertical speed, is AP panel vertical speed hold. It's put it into that mode. You can see the lights come up, and the up and down. Let's have a look at those. Vertical speed up, vertical speed down. It's a different variable. It's the APVS vertical speed variable, and you've got the decrement and increment again, going up by 1 each time, or down by 1 each time. But the one for that one is actually 100 feet per minute. So if I go up, it's going up to 800, 700. Yeah, so they actually convert to hundreds of feet per minute automatically. Nothing that we need to do here to indicate that. Okay, so that's those ones there. So that really is layer A pretty much sorted. So I've got these buttons left for layer B, and what I'm experimenting with on that at the moment, let's just go back to that. There we go. What I'm experimenting with at the moment is putting just putting the switches for the landing light, taxi light, position light, strobe, etc. on there, and the fuel transfer button, just experimented to see if I like it or not. But the other thing I do need to have are the soft controls for the flight plan, procedures, the menu, direct to. And those are the buttons that are, let's change the view here, and they're the ones I use there for my flight plan and action procedures in flight, or deciding to fly direct to a position. So those buttons there are allocated on layer B, direct to flight plan, clear, and I hesitated on that. I'll come back to that in a second, the menu, the procedure at the end. So they're relatively easy to set up. Again, if I bring up axes and O's for you, if I press the direct button, so I'm on layer B, and I press the direct button, you can see it says AS1000 MFD direct to, and that's been pressed. And if I go and have a look, you'll see direct to where, and he's asking me then to use these commands. So they're on the same layer. This is on layer B and this is on layer B. So if I wanted now to put in a particular facility, that's how I put it in. Okay, I hesitate a bit on the clear. The clear has two functions. The first clear is just to do your last entry, and that's a slow press. There's a long press as well on the same button, which clears your entry and brings you back to your map. So if we look at that in X's and O's, if I press my clear button here, there's my clear. So the ordinary clear is just programmed in with AS1000 MFD clear, and that does that. But if I wanted to put on the same button to have the long press, which is one that clears the entry and brings me back to my map. So if you get lost in the menu system, just hold that button down for a second, and it's a long click, and you can determine what you mean by a long click. So that's about half a second. Let's make it a little bit longer. Let's go to 400. Let's go to 500, and we'll save that. So that's how you control how long that click should be, how long you hold it down for the long press to work. Let's have a look. I've done direct to. Let's have a look at menu. So if I press menu on so I'm on layer B, menu, and you can see it just says AS1000 MFD menu push, and that's brought up the menu. Press it again, that should go away, and procedures, and that one's that one, the 1000 MFD procedure push, and we'll press that again to get rid of that. And what have I got here? Flight plan, 1000 MFD flight plan push, and press it again, it'll go away. And I've got the enter button, which is just MFD enter push. So they're dead easy to find, those ones there. They're the ones I use there. I have got those programmed in on where I've got the soft buttons on my PFD. So if I bring that up on my PFD and bring that over on my Stream Deck, I've got them programmed in on the main section there. So if I wanted access to those buttons on this side here, I can do it, but I hardly ever use them. So it's not worth allocating space on here, I don't think. Maybe I'll think about that later. As I said, I had these other buttons that I didn't really know what to do with, and I put in the landing lights and strobe lights and those kind of things onto here. I did put the AVO switch on there. I've taken it off again. I'm playing with that. It's one of the buttons I do forget to press sometimes when I'm starting the aircraft up, and I wonder why my radios aren't working, and it's because I haven't switched the avionics on. So I've got that on the same layer as my comm. If I find my radio's not working, I can toggle it back on again there. And the other little experiment that I've got going at the moment is turning the cabin lights and the panel and the glare shield, just turning them on and off. Obviously I've got those programmed into my Stream Deck. If I bring my Stream Deck back in again for you, I've got them into the lights panel here, so I've got control here and turn the cabin lights on and off. And let's go to a different view. There we are. Probably just about dark enough now for you to see these. So if I use my Stream Deck, I'm going to turn the instrument lights off. So that would be a long press on that button there, and turn off the glare shield. Right, if I turn the glare shield back on again now, there we can see the lights and the instrument lights coming up. That's brilliant. So if I short press on those, that'll bring those both to 100%. But whatever I set it to, I can just turn that circuit off using this button here. So I want to turn off the panel lights and the glare shield, and then when I press it again, it'll bring it back on again. So it toggles those, and it remembers the setting that I had. So that's at 55% and that's at 60%. It remembers that. And the cabin light at the moment, let's change the view on that. The cabin light at the moment only responds to cabin light number 2. I've got to do a bit more work on thinking this one through. That I can turn number 2 on and off, and I really might think about doing the other lights. But that one there toggles the cabin lights and it's sending value 1. I can try setting other values. Okay, so that's really the design and layout of my X-Touch Mini. I think I've covered everything on there. Yeah, pretty much everything covered. So best of luck with that. I said I'll put I'll send you a link to my GitHub, and once I put up the I'll tidy up the Word template and stick that up for you. And if I can find which video that I did the most work on how this works, I can link to that. But I think you've probably got the gist of how that all works. Okay then, right, that's it. I think I've done all the Stream Deck stuff. I've done all of the X-Touch Mini with you. So all that's left, I want to do 2 test flights. One so that I can land using a procedure, so demonstrate procedure landings to you, and the other one is to demonstrate the use of the mode that is on the, let's get the view changed again. Here, the OBS mode. I want to demonstrate how I use OBS mode to land. So I want to do 2 more videos to show you the flights in action and test all of my settings. Okay, so I'll see you in the next couple of videos.